How's it, grade 11s? Today we're going on to simultaneous equations. Okay, so example 1. Solve for x and y. All right, so you will get something like this in your exam or even your cycle. Just write it down here. Okay, so we've got two equations and we have two unknowns that we need to solve for. So we need to solve for x and y. Our one equation is here and our second equation is over there. So what I do is I look for the easier equation to solve for, okay? And what I mean by that is, for example, over here, if I solve for x, I can take the y to the other side and I get x is equal to 1 minus y. Now that's an easy thing, okay? So let's do that. So we can say x is equal to 1 minus y. And if I call this equation 1 and this one over here equation 2, and I say sub equation 1 into equation 2. In other words, wherever I see a x in equation 2, so there's an x, there's an x, there's an x. Wherever I see an x, I'm now going to replace that x with that 1 minus y. So let's do that. So this x in equation 2 will be changed to 1 minus y. So we get here 1 minus y squared minus 1 minus y times y minus 1 minus y from there plus y equals to 0. Now have a look what we've done here. We've now changed this whole equation into one variable, which we can solve for now. So this thing over here, remember, this means we've got two brackets, 1 minus y, 1 minus y. That's what that squared means. And when you've got two brackets like that, you FOIL. So I'm just going to miss a few steps, but I am foiling, grade 11. So the first will give us 1. The outers will give us minus y. The inners will give us minus y, so we get minus 2y. The last will give us plus y squared. Okay. Now with this one, just be very careful. I need to multiply the negative into the bracket as well as the y. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply in minus y to both these terms here. So minus y times 1 is minus y. Minus y times minus y is plus y squared. Okay. Over here, this y is not being multiplied in there because we're adding. The only thing that needs to be distributed in there is that negative. So with this one here, we get minus 1 plus y. And then we've got plus y over there. I'm just going to get like terms together. So we've got y squared plus y squared gives us 2y squared. Then we've got minus 2 minus 1 is minus 3 plus 1 is minus 2 plus 1 is minus 1. So that's minus y. Okay, so that's gone, 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 and gone. All right. Then what are we left with here? 1 minus 1 is 0, so they cancel. And what I can do here is now I can solve for this. Remember that this is your equation, so we're going back to your factorization, guys. Now remember with your factorization, you've got common factor, you've got dots, you've got trinomials, and you've got grouping. Okay, so those are your four things that we're going to be looking at. So over here, I've got a common factor of y, take it out, and we're left with 2y minus 1 equals to 0. I can solve here, so we get y is equal to 0, or, okay, maybe I shouldn't miss a step here. I'll do the whole thing for you. 2y minus 1 equals to 0. Take the 1 to the other side, divide by 2, and you get y is equal to half. Okay, so what we've done there is we've solved for y, but now we need to solve for x, okay? And that's where this equation comes into play, this whole equation 1 equation. Because we've got a y value, and this x is equal to something in terms of y. So what I can do with these two answers, I can just say sub into equation 1. Okay, so for this one here, we're going to get x is equal to 1 minus 0, because I just substitute that y value in there. Now I'm going to substitute this y value in there, and this one we will get x is equal to 1 minus a half. So here we get x is equal to 1 minus 0 is just 1. X here is equal to 1 minus a half is a half. And we have solved for x and for y simultaneously. Okay, let's have a look at example 2. Okay, again, solve for x and y. I just want to get our equations down. Okay, so we've got example 2. We've got y minus 2x equals 1 and x squared plus xy equals 0. All right, so if you remember what I said from the first one, try and solve for the easiest variable. So what I'm going to show you here is solving for one that is not easy. So for example, if we had to solve for the x, okay, what we'd have to do is we'd have to take the y to the other side, and we get 1 minus y. But then we'd still have to divide through by 2 or negative 2 to get the x on its own. And you see you'll end up with a fraction. So that is not so easy. You want to try and avoid that by substituting in a fraction. But if I have a look here, if I take the minus 2x to the other side, then I've got one variable. So y is equal to 2x plus 1. Now that's a lot easier, and it saves us when we start substituting into the other equation. So I can call this equation 1, and I can call this equation 2. Okay, so sub 1 into 2. In other words, wherever I see a y in this one here, I'm going to replace it with 2x plus 1. Okay, so that y there will become 2x plus 1. Right, so we get here x squared plus x. That y becomes 2x plus 1. And that's equal to 0. Okay, let's distribute here. So we get 2x squared. All I'm doing is distributing the x into the bracket. Plus x equals to 0. Get like terms together. And we get 3x squared plus x equals to 0. So guys, just remember, we're going to use our factorization methods. So I'm just using that 1, 2, 3, or 4. So over here, we can take out a common factor of x, and we're left with 3x plus 1 equals to 0. That means we get x is equal to 0, or 3x plus 1 equals to 0. Solve for this one, 3x is equal to minus 1. So x is equal to minus 1 over 3. Okay, now we need to solve for what y is. But we have an equation over here that has y in terms of x. So all I do is I take my x values here that I've solved, plug it in there to find out what y is. So I must just say here sub into equation 1. So for this one here, we'll get y is equal to 2 times 0, that's from this one, plus 1. And then for this one over here, this x value, we will get y is equal to 2 times minus 1 over 3 plus 1. All right, so over here, we get 2 times 0 plus 1 is, that's going to give us 0, and that's just 1. Over here, we're going to get, you can just do this on your calculator, and we get 1 over 3. Okay, so there's our one solution, our 1x, and our 1y. Okay, so not too bad, guys. All right, let's have a look at example 3. Okay, example 3 is there. Just want to copy it down. All right. Now, With some examples, you have no choice but to get a fraction for one of the variables. So if you have a look here, if I take the 2x to the other side, I must still divide by 3. If I take this 3y to the other side, I must still divide by 2. So we can't avoid that whole fraction thing. So what I'm going to do, grade 11s, is I'm just going to pick and choose. So I'm just going to solve for the x. So we're going to get 2x is equal to 1 minus 3y. I must divide through by the 2, and I get x is equal to 1 minus 3y all over 2. Now we had no choice there, okay? And this is what I was talking about with the fraction. Try and avoid this, but like I said, in some cases like this, you can't help not avoiding it. So wherever we see an x now in this equation here, we're going to replace it with this 1 minus 3y over 2. So we just got those two x's there. If I call this equation 1, and I call this one equation 2, then we say sub 1 into 2. Okay, so we get here y squared plus, now that x will become this, 1 minus 3y over 2 times by y minus 2y minus 2. That x becomes that, and we get 1 minus 3y over 2 equals to 0. Okay, so I'm just going to distribute and simplify here. So I'm just going to distribute this y into that and into that. Then likewise, I'm going to distribute this 2 into this one and this one. Okay, so we get here y squared plus y minus 3y squared all over 2 minus 2y minus 2 minus 6y all over 2 equals to 0. Okay, grade 11s, now get rid of your denominator. So I'm going to multiply through by 2, okay, to get rid of that denominator. So I'm going to multiply by 2. If I multiply this by 2, I get 2y squared. If I multiply this one by 2, they will cancel, and I'm just left with plus y minus 3y squared. Multiply this one by 2, minus 4y. Multiply this one by 2, they will cancel, but be careful. You've got this negative over here. So it's negative 2 minus 6y equals to 0. Guys, that is important. Just remember that negative still needs to be multiplied into both of these. I did do the positive here, but the positive is not really going to change their signs. Okay? So now I just need to distribute this negative in there. And we get 2y squared plus y minus 3y squared minus 4y minus 2 plus 6y equals to 0. Get like terms together. So we've got 2y squared minus 3y squared gives us minus y squared. We've got y minus 4y gives us minus 3 plus 6 gives us plus 3y. So those are gone. And then what are we left with is just a minus 2. Okay, I'm now going to divide through by negative 1. And the reason why I'm dividing through by negative 1, remember, always try and make your highest power positive. In this case, it's negative, so I just divide by a negative to make it positive. That becomes minus 3y plus 2 equals to 0. I can now factorize. This is a trinomial. So we get y, 2, 1, minus, minus. So that means that y is equal to 2 or y is equal to 1. Okay, I'm now going to substitute these guys into this one over here to find out what x is. So sub into 1. Okay, so for this one over here, we will get x is equal to 1 minus 3 times 2 all over 2. And for this one here, we'll get x is equal to 1 minus 3 times 1 over 2. Okay, so we get x is equal to, that's going to give us 6 minus 6. 1 minus 6 is minus 5 over 2. That's going to give us 3, so that's going to give us minus 2. Minus 2 divided by 2 is minus 1. So we have solved for x and y simultaneously. All right, grade 11s. So that's the more difficult out of them, but you can see it's not too bad. All right, so for homework, exercise 2.9 for me, please. Thanks, grade 11s.